So last week, Kanye West came out with a rather controversial song. Now, I'm not going to be mentioning what the song is called, but if you have an internet connection, then I should think that you've heard about it by now. In this video, I would like to talk about not the contents of the song, but rather the contents of the music video. Because with this single, we have a group of black men garbed in wolf hide and bear hide, and they're standing there almost like as Roman legionaries, very warrior-like as they chant the title of the song. Basically, these black men are dressed as Viking berserkers. Now, the berserkers were essentially like the special ops of the Viking era. They would, pre-battle, bring themselves into a frenzy through ritual, whereby they were possessed by animal spirits. So they would wear, wolf hides, bear hides, dog hides, and then through this ritual, whereby they channeled the animal spirits of the animal hides that they were wearing to increase their ferocity, their strength, their coordination, their reactions, so that they would essentially become superhuman. In his movie The Northman, the director and student of the occult, Robert Eggers, who also made The Witch, The Lighthouse, and Nosferatu, shows a group of berserkers pre-battle with a shaman doing a ritual, and all these men are essentially again like infusing themselves with these animal spirits, and they enter battle completely fearless, with insane reaction levels, with an incredible strength, and they basically just, murk the entire village. I think they're like a dozen, and they basically defeat an entire village by themselves. This is not some sort of overdone Hollywood-esque trope, burgeoning scene that is exaggerated. This is very much rooted in history, where these men were greatly feared because of their fearlessness, because of their strength, because of their ferocity. Basically, what the berserkers were doing, to speak their own lingo, was to channel the Odinic force. Because Odin, like Dionysus, was very much what I would call a frenzied god, or rather a god that people turn to enter a frenzied, ecstatic state bordering on madness. Right? This is something that has been part of shamanism going back, to the dawn of humanity. The shamans were the ones that developed the first instruments, they were the first actors, and what is acting but the channeling of an archetype, right? So the shamans in the caves, right, in the tents, throughout the world, would channel animals, right? And this is something that seeped into warrior culture as well. For an example from mythology that really shows just how gruesome and ferocious people who are under this Odinic or Dionysian force become, you need only look at the Bacchae by Euripides. In the story, King Pentheus becomes aware of the existence of a Dionysian cult that includes only women. These women are known as Maenads, and we see them featured throughout mythology as being women of incredible strength and ferocity while under this Dionysian influence. Now, poor King Pentheus doesn't know this. He just thinks that they are a random group of women who are just, doing some strange rituals. With the assistance of a mysterious young man who for some reason knows about the location of the cult, King Pentheus is brought to their location of worship, which is not a temple, but a meadow, a grove, basically. As he's watching these women, which includes his own mother and aunt, the young man basically snitches him out and lets the women know that the king is there. By this time, the women have already done the ritual. They're already in a Dionysian frenzy, and so they rush after the king, who runs away, but he's tackled to the ground, and his own mother yanks her heel into his armpit and rips his arm off. And then his aunt rips his head off, and they start parading it around. Only when they come out of this state of madness do they realize what they've done. So this is something that was perhaps fictionalized. Maybe it was kind of Greek men being kind of terrified about, what are these women doing out there? But the Maenads but very much a real group of women. The book, The Secret History by Donna Tartt, follows a group of classic students as they seek to recreate one of these Dionysian frenzies or Bacchae. Speaking from my own experience, one night several years ago, I had smoked a little bit of weed and was in a more receptive state as I went into a forest at night while the full moon was hanging high in the sky like a dangling pearl. Wanting to take in this dark, mysterious, beautiful evening, I decided to do a little meditation. I assumed a standing position, feet shoulder width apart, and as I looked up into the sky, I kind of didn't really feel what I wanted to feel. It was more sort of like just simple stargazing, so I decided to close my eyes and to actually look downwards, to look earthwards. And what I felt in the very soil of the forest was an immense electric charge. With what I perceived to have been my second sight, I saw almost like a galaxy of energy down there, this pure white energy spiderwebbing through the ground. I'm assuming that it's connecting to the trees and everything down there, but I just feel this immense power down there and I want to basically suck it into myself. So I start to breathe and I start to move my hands upwards and I draw this energy into me and I become charged up, to quote a diss track by Drake. And I just continued doing that and doing that and doing that. And the more I do it, the more I feel my human mind, my human intellect sort of take a backseat. And what basically takes its place is an animalistic wisdom and animalistic intensity. And I even begin, I think, like doing, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm basically making like grimaces that are hardly human. And I feel this desire to basically strip off my clothes and run naked, butt naked around the forest like they do in The Secret History. Now, there was like a sliver of human consciousness there still that were like, you know what, this is probably not the best idea. So there was maybe like less than 10% of my mind was kind of like whispering in my mind, like, this is not a good idea. What if you encounter some people, they might get really, really scared seeing a naked guy run around in the forest at night. And do you actually know what you would do if you saw them? Would you just run away or could you potentially even attack them? So that was what I was thinking while I was in the state. And yeah, I mean, based on these stories about the Maenads, about the Berserkers, then yeah, there is a potential danger towards other people, right? Because at this point you are, again, channeling something, a natural force, and you're not fully human. So you're not going to act human, you're not going to respond in a human way. So I decided to go back inside. Now I still wanted to, enjoy the moon, adore her beauty. So I removed the curtains and there she was hanging outside my window. Now the process of channeling and infusing was still going on. And I did remove my clothes and I did sort of start to act in a way that was again not human. I started to do these grimaces and just being guided by instinct, not having any plan at all for what I was going to do. I assumed a lotus position on the bed with the moon hanging just outside the window. I started to breathe and I started to again infuse my being with this energy into what became essentially a tantric ritual. I felt this electric charge shoot into my brain over and over and over again, and I became, again, fully charged up on all the levels of my being. So this is something that can be very, very powerful, very dangerous if you, again, channel it in the wrong way, or if you, let's just say, don't aim towards a high spiritual ideal. Now, why would Kanye West have black Viking berserkers in his music video? Well, this is where it gets very, very interesting, because the psychoanalyst Carl Jung, the protege of Freud, who ditched Freud in favor of going a more mystic and spiritual path. Indeed, he was essentially an alchemist, or at least someone who deciphered alchemy and brought that into psychology. Indeed, alchemy can be said to not only be the precursor of chemistry, but also psychology. Anyway, Carl Jung brought us the term the collective unconscious, and he talked a bunch about archetypes, and it's really sort of like the father of archetype in the sense of when people talk about the archetype, they are doing it from a Jungian perspective. It was a key part of Jungian psychology. And he basically analyzed the Nazis and Hitler and Germany during the Second World War. Basically what Jung observed in the German people in the years leading up to the Second World War and during the World War was that they were infused by this Odinic force. And he even said that if you were to meet Hitler and have a conversation with him, you wouldn't be having a conversation with a real human being, but a personification of this Odinic force. The idea is that the entirety of Germany, collectively speaking, were being possessed by this warrior-like spirit that was a very spirit that the Berserkers were infusing themselves with as they went into battle, and the Maenads become possessed with when they ripped animals and humans to pieces. So does Ye want to infuse his listeners with this ferocious, animalistic, warrior-like spirit? Who knows? So those are my 5 esoteric sense. What do you think is the motivation, the agenda that Kanye has? Is there a spiritual, esoteric understanding behind this music video and this song and the result he wants to make in the matrix of society? Let me know below. Thank you for watching. I'm the Occult Observer, and see you next time.